Welcome to the Partner Starter Institute Module 4, Professional Learning, Enhancing Impactful Programs. My name is Courtney Cintron, Ingenuity's Partner Engagement Specialist, and I will be your host throughout the Partner Starter virtual series. Each module has been designed to equip arts partners with tools and resources to support equitable, quality programs in Chicago public schools in an environment shaped by COVID-19, the economic downturn, and the anti-racism movement. The goal of today's module is to identify resources and learning opportunities to create impactful and equitable programs that are responsive to the current environment. Please be sure to take notes and write down any thoughts or questions as we move through today's session. There will be an opportunity to enter those questions into a Google form accompanying this module. And we'll do our best to address those questions at the live Partner Starter panel on Friday, August 7th. Joining us today to speak on this topic is Nicole Upton, Ingenuity's Director of Partnerships and Professional Learning. We will also be joined later in the session by Ariel Frost, Executive Director of Shift Englewood Youth Orchestra. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Nicole to get us started.
Hi, thanks so much, Courtney, for that great introduction, and welcome to all of you out there in TV land. We're really excited to be here with you today. So what are we working on today? Today's agenda, we're really working on three things. We're going to give you a really good introduction to partnerships and professional learning and what we do, the work of our work, PPL, like we call it for short. We're also going to talk and hear from Ariel Frost about the Arts Partner Standards of Practice. You'll learn about what those are and how to really use them to enhance the quality of your programs. And then finally, we'll give you a little bit of a preview of the work that has happened as a result of the Arts Ed Response Collaborative, or ARC, and how that work is actually influencing our PPL offerings this next school year. So let's get to it. What is partnerships and professional learning, you may be asking? So partnerships and professional learning is one of the anchor core programs of our organization. And we really work with all of the arts partners and teaching artists out there to build your capacity to deliver the highest quality programs you can in schools. And we really do that by looking at partnerships, looking at the ways to start those relationships, looking at what resources you might need, and then certainly what kinds of professional learning programs would help you to achieve those goals. So we're going to take them bit by bit and tell you a little bit about the varied programs and services that we offer. First and foremost are institutes. These are kind of our core, our backbone of the work that we do. These are introductory programs in nature as it relates to the content, and they're really designed just to kind of spark your curiosity and interest in a topic. They really allow you to kind of explore a topic and really begin to think about how that might apply to your practice. It's not going to answer all of the questions that you have, let's say, in trauma-informed practices, certainly, but it'll start to give you a flavor and a taste of what that work is and how it needs to begin, how you need to begin thinking about it and its impact on your own programs and work. Our mini courses go a little bit deeper than our institutes. These are actually short format courses that usually happen over the course of about 3 weeks. And in these courses, we're actually digging deeper into a topic, helping us not only to kind of really learn and kind of embody what the topic is asking us to learn, but also to do so in community and collaboration with other peers. So it's a little bit more of a cohort model and an opportunity to dig deeper into content over kind of a shorter bookended period of time. Our summits are super exciting and fun events. We usually have 2 per year, and on the surface, a summit might look like a vendor fair, but it's actually much more than that. Using data from Artlook as our springboard, we work to connect our partners working within the field to the teachers at CPS who are looking for arts programming. And instead of starting the conversation off with, do you have a field trip and how much is your program? We're actually having conversations that seed those partnerships by saying, what are your goals, school, and what do you really want your students to learn? And then having a conversation on what can that partner offer? And is that really a good alignment to what we're interested in as a school. They're fun, they're exciting, they're really kind of raucous events, and we're really excited in this next year to explore a different way to do our summits in a socially distanced way. So you can expect the same kind of connection, but it might look different in a virtual space. So stay tuned on that. We're going to have more updates as we roll on to the semester here. And then finally, our annual Arts Education Conference. This is an anchor piece of our programs from year to year, working side by side with the Arts Education Department at CPS. We produce a day-long conference that draws over 500 representatives of the Chicago arts education community, from arts partners to teaching artists to arts teachers. It's a really wonderful shared day of learning where we have an opportunity to come together as a community, learn beside one another, and really be inspired and uplifted by the programs. We also offer pretty deep and exciting tools and resources to help you do the work the best way that you can, and also to connect you with the resources that we've been able to collect over the last 5.5 or 6 years. One of the really cool developments that we've added to our website in the last year is our Searchable Resource Tab. So if you go to our resource tab on the website, and let's say you're really desperate to find some more information about, let's say, social emotional learning, you can click right in here in the what are you looking for and do a keyword search. And what that keyword search will turn up for you is any resource that Ingenuity has either created or collected or collaborated on over the last 5.5, 6 years that is related to that topic of social emotional learning. So what you see here, for example, is a resource that was pulled up from our annual Arts Education Conference back in 2016. This was a resource that our keynote presenter brought with her at the time, and she was an expert in social emotional learning in the arts. And so we've got some of those resources here. So sometimes those resources are handouts. Other times they're more in-depth guidebooks, like our Arts Assist guidebook. This is a really great how-to start guide. And so what you'll see on this is where the institute or where the resource kind of originated. Right? For us, this resource was originated as the Partner Starter Institute. Who created the resource? That was Ingenuity, and the date it was created, in addition to a brief description about that resource itself. Here's another example of a resource. This is a resource that was a batch of slides from one of our institutes back in 2017. This came from our institute called Understanding and Using Trauma-Informed Teaching Practices. And these slides were presented by Reginald Harris from In Context Advising, and we've got a great description here on what you can expect to find within that deck itself. So what else can we offer? We've got some other exciting things that you may or may not know about, especially if you are somebody who's been doing this work for a while within the schools. One of the things that we're really excited and proud to offer are TA stipends to attend professional learning sessions. We heard really clearly that our teaching artists working with us and with our organizations, we're really desperate to get to professional learning, but we know that oftentimes they are not compensated for that work. And it's really important, right? If we value learning for our students, we've got to value that learning for ourselves as well. So Ingenuity was able to gather some resources to provide small monetary stipends at an hourly rate of $50 per hour for our teaching artists to attend our institutes, our mini courses, and really kind of build upon their skill and knowledge. And we've got stipends available for just about every program that we offer, available on an availability basis. So you'll find out more on a program by program basis if those stipends are being offered, but we're really excited and proud that we've been able to extend our services in that way in the last year. Additionally, CPS, and I should say Cpdu Approval, is another arm of what we are working towards here. Many of you might know or provide partnership professional development programs to your teachers and to CPS schools. A few years ago, ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education, changed some rules and regulations that made it much more difficult for your average arts partner to actually be able to provide teachers with the professional learning credits to attend their sessions. Ingenuity was able to get approval for being a provider in the last couple of years. And one of the things we're able to do for you is to kind of act as a pass-through for your own Cpdu approvals. There is an application process that goes along with this. There are certain stipulations that you will need to meet based on ISB's recommendations and ISB's requirements. But that is one service that we have to offer to the arts partner community. I'll also note that in this kind of crazy and strange time that we're in of virtual learning and kind of sliding scale of in-person and back to school and virtual, CPDUs can be counted towards virtual learning through the state of Illinois at this point. So if you are thinking about doing any professional learning next year and you're thinking about doing it virtually, we can help you to obtain those CPDU credits for that work. So that's a little bit about our programs, an overview of what we do, who we are, and how we can help you, some of the resources that we have available. I'm really excited now to switch gears slightly and introduce our guest speaker, Ariel Frost, who is the Executive Director of Shift Englewood Youth Orchestra. She's a longtime friend of Ingenuity and currently serves, in addition to her role as Executive Director and many other things that Ariel does, she's also the chair of the Partnerships and Professional Learning panel. And we're really excited to have her here today to speak with you. Welcome, Ariel.
Thanks so much, Nicole, and thank you all for having me. I love talking about a lot of things with Ingenuity, but especially what we'll be talking about today, which are the Arts Partner Standards of Practice. So just so that you know, I'm Ariel Frost. I'm the Executive Director of Shift Englewood. Shift Englewood is a youth development organization that works with music and social justice in the greater Englewood area in the south side of Chicago. And as I said, today we'll be talking about the Arts Partner Standards of Practice. So over 2 years ago, Ingenuity began convening arts education stakeholders in conversations about quality. So how do we define it? What does it look like? How do we create a shared language and understanding of quality in the Chicago arts ecosystem? And how can we provide students with the very best arts education programs possible? So over 50 conversations, the input of 400 individuals, over 140 organizations, the Arts Partner Standards of Practice have been developed to help us understand these questions. So APSP is a diagnostic tool for organizations and individual teaching artists that articulates a vision for quality, teaching, and learning in the arts. There are two frameworks. There's the instructional framework and the organizational framework, and they've been designed to help organizations better align their artistic and educational work and can be used to structure continued progress toward enhancing practices of quality. The APSP contain focus areas, which are elements and characteristics of practice, which teaching artists and organizations can use as a guide for self-evaluation. So although these things aren't mandated, various arts education stakeholders like Shift use APSP to help determine partner readiness, capacity, and the quality of programming. So you can use the standards of practice as a diagnostic tool to help you see what you need to do to achieve your vision of quality and create a plan for implementation. You can also use it as a tool to help coordinate funding and also explain to your funders how you assess your own quality and give a better idea of how your programs are quality programs. And also as a teaching artist assessment tool in the classroom. This will help your teaching artists and people who manage them figure out where teaching artists may need some help and where they're doing really well, and help you coordinate teaching artists and programs. So what you've seen so far on the slides is a lot of detail, and I encourage you to go through the framework on your own and really dig into it. It's really interesting stuff. But in the meantime, Shift has some questions that we ask ourselves about current and future programming that are aligned with the values of APSP that you see here on the screen now. So here are some of those questions. The first is the work student-centered and created in collaboration with the communities where we work. So that means, is it not prescriptive? Is it made in tandem with the school community where we're working? Then, does the work account for issues of equity and racial justice? So is it culturally sensitive to the communities where we're working? Is it including voices beyond the Western standards of artistic merit that we have often learned in the past? Then what are my outcomes for this work, and how will I know if I've achieved them? So rather than just saying, like, here's a program, it'll be fun, we base our programming on what are the outcomes that we want to see, what do we want to happen at the end of this program or at the end of this particular session, and then how will I know that we've achieved those goals, and what are the assessment tools that I'll use to figure out, yes, we have, or no, we haven't? And then how can I change things if we haven't met those goals? Then how will I sustain this partnership while continuing to grow with the community and pivot when necessary? So what am I doing to make sure that the values that we started off working with are still the same values that our community has where we've been working? And what happens if those values change? And are we prepared, based on our mission, to move to programming that more accurately reflects this new set of values? Or do we need to pivot to some other type of programming, or even another school community or community at large? And then, are my teaching artists professionally and emotionally prepared to teach in this environment? And have I provided ways to enrich the teaching artists' learning? So does your teaching artist have support from the administration of your organization? Do they have support from the school personnel? Are there accurate expectations for the classroom culture? Things of those nature. And then for the places where my teaching artists may need some additional help or supports, how am I prepared to help them with that? So these frameworks are aspirational, and of course, no one person or organization could achieve all of those at one time. However, too often there's a disconnect between the unique work of individual organizations and their educational programming. So the frameworks are designed to help organizations better align artistic and educational work, and they can be used to structure continued progress toward enhancing practices of quality. Now, I did talk a little bit about some of the ways that APSP is helpful to teaching artists, and the easiest way to access the Arts Partner Standards of Practice for teaching artists and also for your organizations are Ingenuity's professional learning quiz. So it's a quiz that takes about 5 minutes, and you'll be able to save or print the results as a PDF, and Ingenuity does not store responses or results to those. But it's an interactive tool to help arts partners and teaching artists assess their highest priority learning needs and connect them to immediate training and resources for building knowledge. So what the learning quiz does is it's designed to measure levels of practitioner comfort or knowledge in the Arts Partner Standards of Practice focus areas. And it helps the organizations and teaching artists gauge their strengths and opportunities for growth. So your results will come out saying what areas do you feel really comfortable, and are you working at a high level? And what are some areas that you may need some additional supports? And then in those results, it will connect you to the resources and the tools that we talked about earlier in our session that can help you, gauge those supports and help you increase your learning in those areas. So that's a little bit on the quiz and a little bit on Arts Partner Standards of Practice.
Thanks so much, Ariel. That was such a great overview. We really appreciate you being here and chatting with us about your experience with the APSP. More to come on that. So our final topic today is about the Arts Ed Response Collective, or ARC for short. So as Courtney mentioned at the beginning of our session today, the time that we're in right now is certainly one that none of us have really seen before. Our work, not only in PPL, but really as a sector, is all surrounded by these three main events that have been happening and taking place around us. Certainly COVID, but also the movement to dismantle systemic racism and the economic downturn. And it's with really these three kind of elements working together that the Arts Ed Response Collaborative has come together to try to begin to figure out how we move forward as an arts education sector. So the goals of ARC are pretty far reaching here. We began this process back in March with the hope that we would really begin to collect the voices of our arts education community, of the cultural partners, of arts nonprofits, teaching artists, teachers. We even talked to parents and students and chiefs of schools, as well as the philanthropic community. We really reached far to hear from everybody about some of the emerging challenges because of the time that we are in right now. Through that process, we were really able to provide a really wonderful community of support for one another. It's really great at these times to know that you're not alone, to know that others are facing similar challenges and that we're all in this together learning for the first time and trying to figure it out. The whole goal and the outcome of this work is to create a 12-month action plan, what we're now calling a playbook, for how we move forward as a sector, how we mitigate the challenges and the impact of the crisis on our students and on arts education writ large. Certainly, this is very much a developing conversation, and we're hoping that the ARC guidebook or the ARC playbook will be released by the end of July or early August to provide you as arts partners in the arts ed community with some clear recommendations and strategies and how to move forward in these very strange times that we're in. But I can tell you pretty immediately, what we've already learned is that the implications of our time and of these ARC conversations are pretty clearly showing themselves in what some of the professional learning needs are that we will have as a sector. So we wanted to share with you some of those highlights from the conversations and subsequently some of the trainings that you can anticipate from us in the next school year. Certainly there was a lot of question and conversation about remote learning and adaptation in this time, knowing that taking the arts into a virtual or visual format is not always the easiest thing to do. What do you do with a final culminating performance now? And so lots of questions around how to do that. We can anticipate offering some trainings and how to actually adapt your programs. Certainly, we know that there are a lot of questions right now around CPS policies as it relates to arts partners, rules and guidelines, and we are keeping our finger on the pulse of this, making sure that when we know updates, we can share them with you and also advocate for you as those guidelines are being created. We've heard a lot about trauma-informed practices and social emotional learning throughout the ARC process and the conversations, the real needs and concerns that our community has around student trauma and the need for SEL in whatever a restart of school might look like. Restorative justice was also a topic of interest, as well as centering youth voice or creative youth development. Arts partner standards of practice will certainly be woven throughout all of these trainings. Arts integration was also mentioned, and certainly some more sector level work on anti-racism and undoing racism and white supremacy in our organizations and in the programs that we provide to schools. We'll always be providing regular updates to you as the sector. Certainly this year will be one to remember, and you can count on us to keep you in the loop and updated. So that's a little bit about what you can anticipate. You'll hear more in one of the other trainings about how we're approaching professional learning from a time perspective, but this is a little taste of some of what's ahead. Another thing that I wanted to kind of pull to the surface here that I think is important to recommend is, in this new normal that we are working towards, we are looking at the values that we have of the work that we do. And one of the values that came through, I'm giving you a sneak peek here, one of the values of the ARC process that was really clearly articulated by the voices who contributed was this knowledge sharing and professional learning being an anchor for the work. And these long-term relationships that we've developed with schools over time have really enabled our communities of practice to thrive. And now amidst closures and questions about reentry, there are a lot of questions about what that means and how we need to prepare differently to really deepen and maintain those relationships that we have built with schools and with students over time. There's a lot of anxiety about what the needs will be for students and teachers in the coming year. And certainly the disparities of the impact on the pandemic on communities across the city came into focus, and the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor have certainly highlighted the kind of cumulative stress that is upon our students and what our students have faced over the first part of 2020 here. So we're really approaching our professional learning from a perspective of connectivity and from really not wanting to look at professional learning as a box to check or something to complete or a one and done conversation or even just a calendar commitment. We really want to prepare not only schools but arts partners for a restart, for further transitions and changes which we can anticipate, and the expected kind of ongoing issues that relate to COVID-19. We know that professional learning provides so much value, so much connection, and so many resources and tools. And we're really holding ourselves to make sure that we are accountable for our own learning. Oftentimes it's the thing that gets taken off the list of things to do the most quickly because we have other things to focus on. But we feel really strongly, and we heard through this art process, that when we deprioritize our own learning as educators, we are subsequently deprioritizing the learning of our students. So we have to really show up for ourselves so that we can show up for our students. And they certainly need that from us this year, probably now more than ever. So that's a little bit of what is on board for partnerships and professional learning. All of it is working towards our organizational mission, which is really about making sure that every student in every grade in every CPS school has access to a high quality arts education. And we don't want this time to distract us from this mission. This is still the mission. The way that we need to accomplish it is going to look different, but this must still be our mission. And we believe that professional learning and your part in professional learning can help us accomplish that. Courtney, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Nicole and Ariel, for talking with us about Ingenuity's professional learning resources and giving us a sneak peek of trainings and priorities for the year. That's it for Module 4. Tune back in soon for our 5th and final module entitled Funding Partnership Work, New Approaches to Sustainability, which will discuss and identify new approaches to financial sustainability as it relates to the current environment. We will be hearing from Ingenuity's development team, Christopher Chanson and Brianna Hernandez, as well as our Creative Schools Fund team, Elizabeth Cole and Ola Folletti. Once again, we invite you to join our live panel discussion on Friday, August 7th, and don't forget to use the Google form to submit any questions you might want addressed. Thank you, and I'll see you again soon.